Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We are back again. I know every night you've been going to bed praying on your knees. Will there be more 30 days of thought and friends? Today, I am back again with my co-hosts, Andrew Berman and Paul Lucido. And without further ado, Paul Lucido has a quote for us just for this episode. We're going to talk about on page 43, I quit every day. I'm the entrepreneur on 30 Days of Thought and Friends. Paul Lucido.
Yes, sir. So the quote of the day is the best way to get started is to quit and begin doing. Walt Disney.
Wow. I am curious, just maybe in brief, what was the first thought that either of you had when you read I Quit Every Day I'm the Entrepreneur? I reread it this morning and I was taking notes. And then when you shared that quote before we hit go, I was like, how is Paul interpreting this? That was the
Yeah,
first thought I had. So, um, Andrew,
Well,
what
it's
was
just
your immediate? Yeah.
like there's no like quit is not an option. But like you can like if you're an employee, if you're like I can actually um and not that I would, but like I can not work for a week, and there's not as much pressure as when you're the entrepreneur. Like if you quit, like you are fucking up people's lives. Like you have to be 100% all in, and you need to be at the highest possible level that you possibly can be to the best of your advantages, or to the best of your abilities, I should say. So like just like quit is never an option. Now, so to me, as someone who's gone from an entrepreneur to an executive, it's like kind of a quasi entrepreneur, as a C-suite executive, it's given like a P&L to kind of manage in a way. Um, as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of pressure that you have that you don't have in any other role. And so I read quit and I'm just like, shit, I never knew that was an option. And that meant actually there were times when things got ugly in my business. In 2008 when everything blew up, where we made sure actually that the at least the lights on, employees got paid. We suffered in personally, but that's what you have to do, because quitting is not an option. It's just not a, it's like it's much like you wouldn't use a four-letter word in church or temple. Four-letter word, the quit does not actually, you can't use that in as an entrepreneur. That's what came to mind with me.
Well said, Andrew. Really well said. And I will tell you, from my perspective, Jay, Andrew kind of keyed on it. I've kind of walked a similar tightrope as Andrew has done. I went through the mortgage crisis, as you guys know. In 2008, there was a lot of reinvention when other people were trying to figure out where they wanted to go. We've talked about this. But like Andrew, I have some sense of what it means to be an entrepreneur. I also know what it's like to be in the C suite. And I also know what it's like to be in the C suite and have some latitude to be able to do some things like an entrepreneur might think. So sometimes it's making decisions, sometimes it's just experimenting with new ideas. There's a lot that comes with it. And being an entrepreneur is not an easy thing to do. All of our originators, for example, that work in our company pretty much are all wired that way, right? You guys know that in 2025, one of the mottos that we brought in, and quite frankly, it was something that my son and I came up with. The idea was this PRMG now, but then it was like, well, what does that mean? And the idea was bringing your best every day, every moment. That speaks to technically to the entrepreneur, because it's about not quitting. But I also would like to say that failure, unfortunately, is going to be part of the journey. There'll be many failures along the way, but you still got to push forward until you get where you need to get to. So failing doesn't mean you quit. Failing means it didn't work. Now, if you quit and it fails, then yeah, you could say, well, it failed because I just gave up. The idea is not to give up. It's to reroute, to course correct, to find your way through. So I think that guys like us and other people that are in our circle, they're wired in such a way where, to Andrew's point, they do not accept failure as an option. I love that, Andrew. And I will say this, guys, that's a hell of a thing to live up to, because we all know that that's not easy to do. Is that fair to say?
Why isn't it?
Well, I mean, you're asking why failing is not, or what do you mean? Why quitting is not an easy thing to do? Is that what you're asking?
Well, why is failing a hard thing to accept?
Because it plays to a lot of things. It can play to your personal perseverance and ego. That could be part of it. So if you're really driven and saying, I'm not giving in because I won't let that happen, that's one thing. But to Andrew's point, when other people are relying upon you, if that's what it requires to get you to rethink and say, wait a minute, it's not about me anymore. It's about this entire team. It's about everybody that's in this circle. And believe me, I have no room to talk. I've wrestled with this. We're wrestling with it right now in our company. We've got people that come and go. It changes the chemistry of the organization. Now you got to find somebody that's going to fit into the culture. I mean, I can go on and on about all the different things, but to me, the idea is, regardless of what's happening in terms of the micro changes that are occurring, in a more macro way, you got to keep pushing forward. So the idea is, no matter what, I can't stop. I got to keep forging ahead, and I'll figure my way through it. Not giving in, not giving up. I work with a lot of people that have that mentality. I could think of one guy in my head who's our senior VP of national retail production, and he fits that mold. He just doesn't accept no, or I quit, or give up. I think the motto is coach them up or coach them out. That just popped in my head.
Are you talking about Chris?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, one of Chris's like Chris has got so many great actually I don't say lines because I'm trying to think of a better way to say it, but like great words to live by. And that's a great one. Another one that I think about this all the time. So only your mother cares about how hard you worked. Everyone else wants results. It's
that is a Chris Sorensen ism. The other one is, and he says this a lot, is serve for success. And what I get out of that is, we're all servants to some degree.
Yeah.
Nobody's, my motto is, nobody is above doing the work. I always say that to my team. I have two mottos. One I think that's my motto. No one is above doing the work, but there is a platitude out there that I do believe is relevant too. And that one is, and it just escaped me as fast as I said, no one is above doing the work. The other one is, many hands make light work. It takes a village to get something done. You have to have leadership, but it still takes that foundation of people to help get things done. So I always tell my team, nobody's above doing the work. I'm in it too. I roll up my sleeves, and Andrew, you know me well enough to know I am that guy, and I know that you're that guy. Roll up our sleeves to get the job done. You do whatever it takes to get it done. And a lot of times, those are the people that will get the jobs, or the people that get things done. And I've worked around a lot of people that get work done. They, the old saying, excuse my French, get shit done. There is a place for that in our world, because if you don't do that, you can pontificate all you want. You could, litter your wall with all your sheepskins and degrees. But if you don't really perform, nobody's interested. Nobody's interested in working with you. So it comes back to the same thing. None of us could afford to quit. Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you can't have an exit plan. An exit plan, meaning I'm going to work and I've got a plan to work to this point in order to get to this place. And when I get to this place, then a new chapter will open. So let's not discredit the fact that sometimes people need to move on. Sometimes they need to seek greener pastures. Sometimes they need to look for opportunities that are better for their personal growth. And then the people that are left experience some personal growth as a result of that person making that exit. There's so much that connects into this. All right. I want to
How do you
hear.
know the difference between quitting versus completion?
There you go. Good way to say it. Yeah.
How do you know though?
I think completion has to do with, I have a goal, I met the goal, and I completed the goal. I think that's very straightforward in my mind. Versus, I'm trying to hit the goal, I tried to get to the goal, but I decided to give up on the goal. You might argue and say, did you quit and did you not stick with it enough? You could say, well, I stuck with it until I realized this solution, this is not going to work for me. It's kind of like chasing a theory. When physicists chase theories, until the point they realize this theory no longer holds water. It's time. That's where the Bayesian thinking comes in. I've got new information that just revealed to me this is not going to work. You're not quitting. You're now moving to a new lane. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I also want to. What do you think of that? What's your insights, our listeners, on those that change the goal? They change the goal in the face of potentially missing it.
Oh, well, I mean, listen, new information comes about and you can't maintain the course if you realize actually, your compass was configured wrong. Like if or if you realize that, hey, something, our goal was to go from point A to point B, but in between point A and point B, there's a big giant storm a brewing. So we need to actually, go a different way. So new information comes along. That's not quitting. That's accepting new information, and knowing actually, you need to go a different route. It's knowing actually that you're not changing your principles, I guess. I feel like that's like if your guiding principles and values for that are things actually that are guiding your decisions and your actions, and as long as still aligned with that, like if you're saying, hey, listen, it's our I have a convenience store. I don't actually want to carry cigarettes in the convenience store. And that's something I just think it's important to never do, because that's a valuable thing to me. I don't think actually people should have access to tobacco. Whatever it is, no judgment. And all of a sudden you see actually how much money you could make actually by selling cigarettes. You've just quit your principles. You've actually just abandoned your values on that. And that actually, is quitting actually, in a way of what you originally set out to be. Like, I guess, call that a value of actually of your convenience store.
Paul?
Well, I'm trying to absorb what Andrew just said. I want to make sure I heard him right. So you're kind of talking about values and principles now, and now you're compromising your values and principles. I want to make sure I got that part right, Andrew.
Yeah, and that's like, to me, when you are quitting, if you're actually quitting something, like, and let's use it actually, if you have a project, your employees are set forth on and to reach a certain objective, and you have actually, and somewhere along the way, You say, hey, you know something? I don't want to actually. I'm abandoning this. I don't think actually we're going to be able to reach this objective. If you just abandon it, and there's no reason that has changed, besides actually it's just a harder goal to reach. Um, I think that's quitting. But if you've set forth actually if you say, hey, listen, we have this objective we want to reach, we're going to do everything we can to reach this objective, and no new information has come about that changes actually that objective, that's quitting. That is quitting. If you've actually received information that says, hey, this objective is going to be significantly harder, and the outcome is going to be not actually the desired outcome that we were originally hoping, that objective actually is no longer valid. And that to me is different than quitting because it's just too tough to reach that. So it's and it's you know it's nuanced in every situation, obviously. But that's my thinking actually is I think if you can say to yourself, to your team, and look at your values, and look at your principles, and say, actually, you are stopping pursuing this objective because of new information, and not compromising on your original, you're not compromising on your values or principles. Um, that's a situation where you can be considered actually not quitting and just adjusting based on new information.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw where you were going, and that was going to be my counter to your point, but you kind of said it. It goes back to course correction. You're not giving up. You're not quitting. You're modifying. You're finding a way. You may go, you know what? There's an old saying, right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? You know, and there's another thing. So, in other words, the juice worth the squeeze. That's part of the initial evaluation. And as you dig into it deeper and you're moving in the direction, you look at each other and go, guys, are we wasting our time here? We could put our energy somewhere else. So you're not quitting. You might decide to say, this idea is not shaping out to be what we thought. And there are some reasons behind what we're doing. Sometimes it could be money. We just ran out of money to pursue this idea. We ran out of manpower to pursue this idea. We just decided this is not in the best interest of whatever we originally were intending to do. I think you said the right word. It's very nuanced. And so for our listeners, you could be very black and white about this, but here's what I think. And this is just my opinion. So it's one person's opinion. Life has a lot of gray area. And a lot of people like to just show the black and the white. They don't want to talk about the part that's in that bonds the two polar opposites. And at the end of the day, it's the gray area that you're really navigating. And that's really hard to do. It is just difficult to do. There's always going to be things that are going to crop up, that unforeseen circumstances. We've had these discussions before, but to just say, don't be a quitter. It's like sometimes in these rallies and stuff, people will use the military as an example. It always finds its way in. My son's a Navy SEAL, or we know so and so who, when you're in a life and death situation, if the push comes to shove, what are you going to do to feed your kids? Are you going to quit? When you put it in those terms, which are not totally realistic, in my opinion, for the masses, now all of a sudden it's like you got to live your life like it's life and death every day. I don't know if that's healthy to do. I don't know what that does to you internally. I mean, I don't think you should live your life in fear, but at the same time, I understand the metaphor. It's like, well, if you had to they do this all the time. If you have to go get a loan tomorrow to put food on the table, you're not going to go do that for your family. And what do you say to that? Of course, you're going to do everything you can. Will you be successful? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I don't have a crystal ball, but we got to figure out what. I want to go back without digressing here. Jay wrote this analogy. What was Jay, what were you thinking when you wrote this? What is the underpinning message to what you're trying to get across to yourself or to your listeners as it relates to you know, being an entrepreneur and not giving up?
I've been struggling with this question. So I was having a conversation with my knowledge base earlier. And the question I actually asked my advisor was one of my advisors was if I use a metaphor, is it because it's too hard to think? That's a really sharp question, Jay. Using a metaphor isn't usually because it's too hard to think. It's because it's often the most efficient way for the mind to communicate something complex.
Hmm.
Here's why, Jay. Metaphors compress complexity. Instead of explaining a long chain of logic, you take a familiar image and map it onto something less familiar, Jay. Here's an example, Jay. Saying, quote, culture is the soil communicates that culture is foundational, nurturing, and determines growth all at once. Jay. They bridge the gap between known and unknown. When we can't fully grasp an abstract idea, a metaphor ties it to something concrete. That doesn't mean we're lazy thinkers. It means we're leveraging association to understand. There are neurological shortcuts as well, Jay. The brain naturally thinks in analogies. Even in technical fields, scientists and entrepreneurs use metaphors to spark innovation, e.g., DNA as the blueprint. And Jay, they're relational. Metaphors connect emotion, story, and image, so others can see what you mean more vividly than a dry explanation. In short, metaphors aren't about weakness in thinking, they're a sign of flexible, creative thinking. Sometimes we reach for them when words feel limited, but that's not avoidance, it's expansion, Jay. So,
But
Was that a mic drop moment? Andrew, did you just feel dumber, or was it just me?
honestly, I was. You want to know? And this is my mind and about how ADHD. I actually got caught up in thinking about how awesome it would be to take our like whatever our LLM of choice is and have actually the three of our LLMs speak to each other
yeah,
independently of us, just like put our phones down, have our like if you Chat GPT, Grok, whatever you're using, and have it actually have actually a three-way conversation where our AI would just speak to each other to see actually how well it would represent us and our thoughts.
I'd love to do a 30 Days of Thought and Friends LLMs where it's the LLMs having this dialogue as representatives or emissaries of their masters, which would be the three of us.
Yeah.
That's
And that could
interesting.
be just a podcast spinoff of the man. So here's my actual number one. I want to read this definitely before we get off here. I want to read this.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
I believe I was writing it because I couldn't. What was implicit in the pain and the suffering? There's a quote that I put in a letter this morning to someone, something to the effect of King Philip of Macedon said to Alexander, "Kings are not made; they're constructed through pain and suffering."
Hmm.
King Philip II said that to his son Alexander. His son's name was just Alexander. At one time, Alexander was but a half-breed boy, mother Albanian. I mean, at the time there wasn't Albania, but modern day Albania. He was a half-blood. He wasn't full Macedonian, and his name was just, and that mattered. His name was just Alexander. But from pain, right, the dynamic between him and his father, the dynamic between him and his culture,
Hmm.
that dynamic between him, his father, and his lover, and his father's inevitable wife, who they both admired. And I'm sure many other alliterations I could go if I was more of a even more historically rooted in Alexander's and King Philip's dichotomy. The suffering of being in battle at a young age, the stewardship of Aristotle at 52 and him at 12, his great teacher of life and philosophy and warfare, and his conquering of Bucephalus, the great horse that no one could get their asses on. That would become his ride or die in that 20-year campaign. King Philip said to Alexander, "There's no king. A king is not made. They're born, rather. They're not born. They're made from pain and suffering." So I was battling, like, why didn't I just talk about some of the beautiful, clear, articulate bullet points that you guys laid out today on this show so far? I agree with all of them. You've learned from these amazing leaders like Chris that you mentioned on what it means not to quit, to be resilient, to persevere. Like, there's some really sharp insights that I think I knew then. I think I had great mentors like yourself and role models and business partners and clients, and I had read many books that prior to writing 30 Days of Thought. Why didn't I just bullet out all of the and articulate right a very clear dissertation? Instead, there's this metaphor that doesn't make a whole lot of sense without some real serious um, dissection. And I think the answer to your question, Paul, is I was in a lot of pain. I was suffering. I was quitting
Yeah.
every
That's
day, a little bit as an entrepreneur.
that's a
Yeah.
that's an honest point you made, and I was feeling something like that from you, because being an entrepreneur means to always push forward, but when you threw the "I quit" part in there, I'm going, that's the part that I had to really dig in and understand. And that's why I found the Disney quote, because that made sense to me. That's how I was able to couple that together a little bit with what you're saying. There is some nuance to it, and of course there's some differences, but yeah, I look, man, you write like a philosopher. You do. That's who you are. You're a young philosopher. So I think I go back to what I've said since we've started this journey. This book is a thought-provoking book. You read the passage. Andrew and I have talked about it so many times. You read the passage and it starts to get the wheels turning. What I might get out of it might be slightly different than what Andrew gets out of it, what might be slightly different what you may have intended it to be. But the point is, look what it just brought forth. This has been a really good conversation, right? Um, Andrew, your message to me today was real strong. It came through that failure is not an option. That's the main thing I got from you. Failure is not an option. And when you said that, that made me think of people that I work with currently that have that same mentality. And I wanted to bring something into this, and I don't want to digress. I'm trying to think of the book. It's called Leaders Making Leaders into Leaders. It's by Maxwell. Is it John Maxwell? There's a
John Maxwell,
James
yeah.
Clerk Maxwell, but that's the guy that invented. That's more into science. I think it's
Yeah, John Maxwell,
Yeah. He's the
leaders
leadership guy.
create leaders.
yes. So he talks about your ladder. In fact, the book has a graphic of a ladder. You could have your ladder against a wall and successfully get up and over the wall and come to realize I climbed over the wrong wall. I was successful. I got over the wall, but I successfully climbed over the wrong wall because I had my head down. I wasn't paying attention. You could be sickling the weeds, whacking through it with machetes and cutting through, but you don't know where you're going. Whereas if you have back to good leadership and back to good visibility going, oh, holy shit, we need to go that way. We're going the wrong way. You guys are doing a great job, but we got to go this way. That goes back to the idea of course correction. You're not failing per se because you're giving up. You're failing because you're not going in the right direction. So you do have to, there's so many things that play into this.
I want to speak to that in a Nietzschean sense. For Nietzsche, interpretation is not weakness, because interpretation's been implicit, I think, in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
When Andrew was talking about information coming in,
Mm-hmm.
change, he's talking about change, information coming in. The question I have to pose to you guys is, we're a village, right? You said it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
Many hands make light work.
Yes.
In the thrust, in the face of new information, how do we realign our formation, or how do we come into formation? We, as many people, make light work. The people, without the vision, the people will perish.
Hmm.
Okay, information comes in, new information. That's an inherent component to business, to life. New information comes in. So how are we in formation, right? We as the people in formation. We have to be in dash formation to go to battle together
Right.
with the new information.
Mm-hmm.
Information and us in formation. This is the leadership and culture conversation.
Yeah, that's good.
The leader, because this conversation is about the hero in each of us in the excerpt, the entrepreneur. This also was elucidated earlier about how in both in your companies and in your experiences as business people, uh, even those that may not have been defined as rigidly as entrepreneur were representing entrepreneurial values. Right? There's a spirit there. There's a spirit of these values we associate with the entrepreneur.
Very true.
That goes beyond any rigid label. So I wanted to pose this, I guess, part of the conversation. It's about interpretation. Because Andrew, how the leader interprets the information and then continues to move forward contradicts their values or aligns with their values.
And also it's how they interpret it and how they relay it to the team. I mean, are they inspiring, the team to follow suit? And I think, where the entrepreneur stays a founder is where they're not inspiring, where they're saying, hey, we're going to do this because this is the way I say to do it. So I just came back from an event that was all publishing and media CEOs, and this one guy, was talking about how some of his people, are not embracing AI, and this is a common thing actually that people in media and in publishing, find people feel like they're threatened by it. So when this guy said something, I realized, oh, he is not going to be growing much more, because he said this. He said his reasons why he thinks actually his people should be doing it, and he says, and they're not really listening. So, but they realize that I'm the boss, and what I say goes. So I win. That is not the way to inspire actually your team. If you're not getting them on board, and you're not sharing that new information, besides you taking that new information, if you're not sharing it and inspiring the team, you're not going to get your team in formation with you.
That's a
They're
good
going
way
to
to say it.
they're going to say, "Up, there's boss man with another freaking dumb idea that's not going to go anywhere." And like the best leaders are the ones actually are able to show actually their team why it's important to them, why it's in sync with their original mission, and they could all be a part of it to make it happen. And that leader can be a servant to their people, going back to what you were saying, Paul, because that's what it really is all about. And that's where this is another place where that entrepreneur goes from that founder state to more CEO level, is when they realize that they are the servant to their people, they are a servant to their team. Well, they might have this vision, that if they just keep that vision in themselves and don't spread it out properly, they're just going to be an army of one with a couple of people helping make these tasks easier. If they get everyone in formation, then actually they can move to that new goal, to that new objective, and keep everyone in mind. And when new information comes about that says, okay, you know something, I thought actually we were going to be able to hit our objective of hitting, $10 million in sales this year, but you know something, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think actually we're only going to be able to hit, 7.5. But that's okay, because we have new information that says actually we're not going to be able to hit it, and this is why I know actually we could hit it next year. Oh, also, by the way, let's talk about our profitability kicking ass. So there's other information that comes along. That leader needs to inspire actually the team and spread the message properly, so it doesn't seem like actually that they're just abandoning ship because they don't feel they can make it.
Good point. And that was some good, see, and where you were going, it kind of made me think of what Jay was saying earlier. You're using some high level sort of, not necessarily metaphors, but you're painting the picture through explaining that at the end of the day, it's all about, I mean, think about this, guys. We're going down that path of alignment again. It's about being culturally aligned. It's about being in lockstep. It's about everybody sharing the same values. For the most part, there'll be nuances, but the idea is, do we all agree to this mantra? Are we going to march to this mantra, kind of a thing? And it's so important. The other part that's important, to your point, that was kind of back to my point, is demonstrating that you're willing to get in and do the work with them, showing them how to prepare the meal, giving them some insights, some actual nuts and bolts. Cheering people along is good. I mean, being a good cheerleader, being a good ambassador, being a good showing support is all important. But doing the job at the end of the day is getting the job done. What does it really require getting the job done? And a lot of times I'm in a lot of meetings, lots of meetings, where it's like, look, they're looking for the team to figure out, how do we accomplish what we're thinking? We're thinking this. We want to do this. We know it could be done. You guys can do it. Then it's team huddle. How do we figure out this gameplay? And it's weird that I use the word gameplay, but a lot of sports analogies are used, I've learned, as I've been working more in the field of sales. In my opinion, the mortgage business is all driven by sales. It is people in, people out, find better people, get them to bring their book of business in. Let's ride that as long as we can ride it, and hopefully they'll stay with the company because we're going to give them so much support. But it's money. We sell money, and so the only way to really do it is we need boots to the ground. Now we're talking about AI, like you guys are just bringing up right now. I know I'm digressing a little bit. I'm just processing some thoughts. AI is so important right now. I am learning it. I'm toying with it. I'm using it. I'm testing to see if it could write. I'm testing to see if for me, I use it like a tool, no different than I use the calculator. I'm going to just use this tool to see, I got all this information. Can you put it together in a summary? Can you take this information and drill it down into steps for me? Oh, wow, that's pretty good. Oh, now I got to fix this. But you got me started in the right direction. AI is going to aid us at the speed of business, which most businesses need. The mortgage business operates at the speed of business. It's all about sales. It's all about conversion and how quickly can we do it. And that's where technology now, we're using, we're leveraging tech to help us get there. I know I kind of talked sort of in a full circle there, but that's the kind of stuff we're up against right now, Andrew. To your point of your friend, the guy that was in the media side, yeah, a lot of authors are feeling threatened. I'm also I challenge this to our listeners. How many people out there are writing books just using AI to write it? And how many can spot a book that's really, or information that literally has been gleaned from AI? I know people that can do that, that go, this is crap. This is not even written that great. This is boring. It's been written by Chat GPT versus using your own mind to really write something and put something together. Are we beginning to lose that ability?
Oh, I can tell it all the time. I get submitted pieces all the time that are, AI written, and I'm if there's now, fortunately, there's certain things that we can tell today and that people are doing, actually, that they're being lazy to not go through it to make sure, actually, that these telltale signs of AI are not removed from their writing, and they're also not training their language, their system, to be able to remove these things as a part of it. Um, but it is, and I'm not sure, actually, that this was the intention to go down this rabbit hole, but I'll like, it's a rabbit hole that I always follow down, because it's so impactful. I just like, I'm right now looking at a text message from a buddy of mine, who has done nothing with AI. He's a financial advisor for wealthy and entrepreneurs, and he's like, I don't understand, actually, how it can impact me. Like, where could it help me? And you know, people, actually, that don't embrace it now and embrace it early, are going to be at a significant disadvantage. And those who are embracing it now and embracing it early, all in, are like, it's an unfair playing field right now. It's like, I really feel like sometimes, like, I'm fucking cheating. Like, it's just like, I have access to cheat codes that like, most of the world doesn't know that the cheat codes exist. More and more people are starting to get it and finding it, which I hope actually enhances it all and makes it all better. But yeah, it's got to be fully embraced, and it is an entrepreneur's best friend. Let's call a spade a
That's
spade.
interesting.
Yeah.
So you say it's yeah, I think it's something we have to learn. My concerns with it, does it promote laziness? Everybody thinks they got the answer by just throwing it in Chat GPT. Sometimes it makes it rubs me wrong, because it's like, well, if then what do I need you for? I could do what you just did. I could do that too. I could just go to Chat GPT and ask it a question and see what kind of answers it gives me. I know individuals that do that, and they talk about Chat GPT, but then Chat GPT will produce what it produces, and now it's like, well, this, did you even bother to read what you got back? The idea is, it's just a tool right now. You need to leverage it as a tool. It could be helpful to get you started. It could be helpful when you hit a creative block and you're going, I need something. And now you're tapping into this holistic resource of knowledge, because that's what it is. It's all of us. We're all Chat GPT. Everything that we've pushed online that's out there, every search that we've done, you can go on, now lives in this ether, and we have the ability to tie into it and use it. So you remember The Incredibles? I always use this metaphor because I wrote that story. Remember when I wrote Living on Video?
Yep.
I think in there I have the thing with the syndrome. Remember the guy that created the mechanical beast to fight Mr. Incredible? Well, and he had that hand, that sort of robotic arm, and he said, and when everybody is special, no one will be. In other words, if I give this superpower to everybody, nobody's special anymore. I would argue and say that's true, but now it'll be a race of who's the best at Chat GPT, who knows how to leverage it, who knows how to ask it. And I say Chat GPT, I'm talking about AI. How do you know how to ask it the right questions? Can you get it to write in your writing style? Can you get it to respond as if it was you? Those are the things that are going to start to surface over time, in my opinion. But I'm not afraid of it personally. I because right now I'm already getting a sense of what it is. I think for somebody that doesn't know what it is, like people I talked to this last weekend at a dinner, that are just they read all this stuff, they hear all this stuff on the news, and they think it's doomsday. They think like the robots are going to come and take over. Well, you know we've been saying that since the 1960s. The machines are everywhere. You know they've been around for a long time. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm just blabbing now.
Earlier in our conversation, when both of you were elucidating on management, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
I the di the the interaction between information and the formation of the people relating to the information.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew said something that led to like a vision, like a visual, an idea, a spark of imagination, and he was elaborating on the distinction between founder and CEO.
Yeah.
My note had it here that he was saying uh, the CEO is serving the team, and I wrote down founder equals servant to customer, CEO equals servant to the team. Now, that
Yeah.
binary, okay, may be a helpful uh, note or visualization, or like uh, you know, to distinguish between two phenomenon, two states of motion. However, if they become arbitrary, then we lose the spirit, the essence of what the value is, because it isn't arbitrary. And oftentimes we can look at these things, these concepts, as if they're rigid, as if there is an objective truth rather than a useful interpretation based on nuance, based on context, based on Paul saying earlier, life, people want to look at it black or white, but it's all about the gray. So I had this like visual. I had this this uh this thought of a wave. Okay. We can look at oftentimes look at business, look at management, look at leadership, like we're the person on a pier or we're on the beach in the waves. Okay, or you're on a pier. That's how I was like thinking about it. And I couldn't quite grasp, because I don't know enough about waves to go beyond the fact that I don't think it's rigid. It's more helpful to look at it as fluid. And I had a further thought based on my life experience, my business experience as a consultant, the compilation of what's made me who I am in bajillion interviews, that different times, different market cycles, different times call for different leadership reflections. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Like when the tide is going out, you see who's swimming naked. In the bad times, we need the leader to be working in the business. In the good times, if they're not working on the business, what the hell are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like to use simple arbitrary. So I didn't know quite how to express my thought about waves, because I don't know anything about waves, but I've learned that the process is generally called wave action. or wave shoaling, and swash depending on what part you mean. So shoaling is waves travel from deeper water into shallower areas nearer the coast. They slow down, they increase in height, and become steeper. Breaking is when the waves get too steep, it topples over. This is what we see as a wave breaking near the shore. Swash, after the waves break, the water actually rushes up the beach's face. And backwash is where gravity pulls the water back down towards the ocean. Together, this cycle is breaking, swash, and backwash, and is what people often mean when they describe waves coming on the shore.
Yeah, see, to me, well articulated.
Every business is like a wave, okay? Energy builds unseen in the deep waters of planning. It crests when pressure meets opportunity. It breaks when it finally when reality hits. When reality finally hits, it breaks. Then it surges forward in growth before gravity pulls it back to reset. The role of the entrepreneur isn't to stop the cycle, it's to ride it again and again and again, turning wave action into culture, into resilience, into legacy.
It's yeah, I mean, listen, that made perfect sense for me.
So wait, now here's the kicker. I had this thought earlier about a wave because of my experience as a consultant, interviewer, culture advisor, et cetera, in the tenure that I've been walking around the earth. But I couldn't quite put into words my thought around the fluidity, the interaction. But alongside with my knowledge base, I was able to ask it a few questions about what a wave is and how does a wave relate to business based on my intuition. And so just now, in parts of my explication, was me reading some of my notes from me relating to my language model. So how somebody integrates these tools into their business, their life, their podcast, whatever, is going to reflect, I think, their intellect innately, their education level innately, their core values. Like Culture Matters, our values are preparation. Our values are urgency. Our values are consistency. Our values are curiosity. Our values are focus, to name a few. Education is another. Yeah, to somebody that is attempting to model those things, I think the integration of these technological tools can help, right? As Brad would say, you've got you want real intelligence and artificial intelligence. What do you call that? Right. So Paul, you did say something earlier about, or no, you expressed something earlier that I've witnessed this phenomenon. There's, I think, three camps, as if, and I like your guys' interpretation of this. There are those that have, there are those like, okay, the high performers, high producers that have the core values of the past in their ontology, their being. Oftentimes they'll look at these technological advancements and they'll scoff at them. Then you have and because they're high performance that are oftentimes in positions of authority, you know, they don't have to get involved with them. And they don't necessarily need them because they have not been integrated into our business or our world yet fully. Then you have a camp of people, they're not productive no matter what, but they're like the grifter culture. They're in these tools, they're teaching these tools, they're selling these tools, they're quote unquote using them in the sense that they are using them, and they think that they're more productive when they're actually less valuable. And so they're higher output, lower quality. That's a whole camp of human that I've had the displeasure of coming across in business. And those are the ones that the very high performers that aren't using these tools, that have a lot of reason not to, because they're already successful in positions of authority, scoff at and say, "Ha, you're no Christian. I don't believe in any God. I have no interest in any God because you're no Christian. I see how you live. That's not a religion that I want to participate in." And so, and then there's people that are uh, they're the best of both worlds. They're high performers and they're using these technologies. Now, those are the three camps that I've come up with so far. I don't know if that's all the camps. That's why I'm sharing them. But I've
That's good.
definitely seen these two camps of
Yeah.
the people that are less productive and think they're more productive, that piss off and disenfranchise very productive people that aren't using them, that are going to lose not to the unproductive proselytizers of the tools, but they're going to lose to the up and coming generation of the productive, the very mentees that they need to be mentoring, that are just going to kill them in their sleep and take their jobs and probably end up working for the lazy people that are promoting them or proselytizing them, that are putting out more and more shit.
Wow.
The young Paul, or the young high performer that's coming up and using the tools, is not going to respect Paul, the high
Right.
performer, who they're gonna end up thinking they respect the lazy, unproductive, but promoting person using the tool, and then learn their culture. They're going to learn from their core values, and they're just going to hate both of you. And so we're basically creating a demonic younger generation then in that case, now that I think about it, that really understands these tools, but lacks the core values that we've talked about in this show of, like, what it takes not to quit. So it's like the tale of two cultures. And then there's the third camp, which is who we want to be. I, I, I have no idea. I don't think I don't know what camp I'm in.
Well, yeah, wow, holy smokes. You got my head spinning. I mean, look, when you come from point of origin, you've been doing something for so long, you've got the history behind it. I could use my own experiences, what I've done over the years. This is just about adopting some new technology in order to maybe help you leverage what you already know to the next level. The old saying, what got us here won't get us there, kind of a thing. I hear that platitude thrown around a lot. And I do understand it. I think that at this point in time, when you were talking about the black and the white, and we brought about the gray area. So when you got pure black and pure white, you have two low entropy environments. We'll call the black coffee and we'll call the white cream. When you first put cream into the coffee, initially you can see the separation. You've got two low entropy environments, and then all of a sudden the cream begins to entangle into the coffee. And now you've got entanglement going, and now you're starting to increase the entropy. At that moment, when the cream and the coffee are starting to come together, there's tendrils and there's all this mixing going on, and you're in a high entropy environment. And then eventually the whole thing turns to a cream color, a light tan color, and now you're back to a low entropy environment. This is kind of like that. The entanglement of what we know and what we've been doing with technology, we're in a high entropy environment right now. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of entanglement going on. There's a lot to be discovered, but eventually it will smooth out and it'll become one thing, where it'll all be kind of in unison with one another. But right now, it's not. It's to the haves versus the have-nots. It's to who knows versus the who doesn't know. It's the resistance of people that that fall into my category, that go, screw that shit. You don't even know what you're talking about. Versus what you can go, well, wait a minute, let me embrace what they're trying to do and see if I could bring my knowledge into that and find a way to make it come together. I loved your wave theory. That's what made me think about the entropy thing. The wave theory was great. The wave theory actually made me think of business as business ebbs and flows. That's it. Waves in, waves out, waves in. Waves create more waves, and then they create entanglement. There's so much. We should do another series
Like we
on
don't,
just
this
that
is,
alone, and there's so much to be revealed in that. Trust
here's what I want to say too about this the technological renaissance that's happening
me.
is is and this plays into entrepreneurship. What is the entrepreneur? They're a medium of intuition.
Yeah.
They're a medium of intuition. The intuition of the visionary, right? And everyone has a degree of intuition, or else, maybe speculatively, our species would have killed off the entrepreneurs a long time ago. uh, Seen them as a cancer versus as versus, like, there is that degree of, it's the opposite. It's like, do not worship false idols. I mean, it's in
Yeah.
all the texts. Like, no, there's something about the human condition that loves the intuition of the leader, the intuition of the shepherd, you know, guiding the flock of sheep. There's something in human nature that adores the entrepreneur, that adores the populace, the that adores this power, this fantasy, this imagination, this creativity. It's not, we don't shun it, we adore it to the point where we have to, like, guard ourselves from it. So what I'm saying here is that the entrepreneur is a medium of intuition. What's Wherever intuition comes from, that flash of imagination, oh, the wave, partnering with the technology can help now bring to light more information to make that alliteration better, stronger, faster. And
Mhm.
I was trying to example that earlier when I read some of what I read, because I was reading that. I was just engaged with it to the best of my ability, that it may not come across as if I was reading some of that. Um, but and I learned something very quickly from being able to read what I read earlier about the waves, because I didn't know anything about those waves. I was reading it from my AI tool. I was reading that. So because yeah, exactly. You may not even have recognized that I was actually reading it. Um, this and with that, what does the entrepreneur, right, in their intuition do? They have an idea, they have a thought, they take a risk, and then they figure out who they have to bring through words and right, they use capital, they use words, they use ears to get a team formed around them, and the team is smarter than them at the various domains. The founder may not want to reconcile with that, because they need uh that mask not to die from the pressure of the entropy of the chaos. They might not
And,
want
and
to.
I,
They might need the masks to not
yeah,
quit. They might need the ego,
yeah,
an identity, of pride, of even idealized pride, not to quit in this irrational pursuit of something inside of them they cannot quite articulate. They cannot quite. And I'm talking about here the progenitor of an idea. All people have ideas, and if it wasn't for the impression of the idea mirrored in the follower wouldn't work for the leader. So everyone has ideas, everyone has vision, everyone has capacity for vision. Somebody starts it and somebody finishes it, and there's everyone in between. so
right.
so anyway, I just I I I don't know. I've enjoyed this conversation. I love how, I think it's funny that we always started one thing and we end up on another, and you can't really beat that. But my testimony around these technologies is that it's 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 increasing my capacity to be creative. It's not suppressing
Yes.
or repressing my ability
Yeah.
to create. It's increasing the speed, and it's increasing it's giving me even more breath to be curious, even more. It's the compression between, the distance between time and space is becoming more and more compressed.
That's beautifully said. And at the end of the day, you're right. I think what we have to do is we have to do our best to embrace it. It's inevitable. Learn as much as you can about it. Figure out how to leverage it in what you do. And actually, it's a great tool for entrepreneurs. It really is, because back to, and I know we're running low on time here.
Do you guys need to go?
I'm there, brother. But I was gonna say, yeah, I heard a tap on my door behind me. I was going to say that, going back to leveraging it, it's back to embrace the technology, use it to your advantage. If you're an entrepreneur, you have so much available now at your fingertips. We live in an information age. We do. We live in an information age, and it's just beginning to swell. I don't think it's crescendoed yet. I think there's more to come. And right now we're in an there's a lot of entropy right now. You said it yourself. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of randomness happening, but eventually it will smooth out. That's what happens when you're in an entropy environment. All of a sudden, there's a point after all that entanglement, after that chaos, which is hard to gauge and to figure out. Eventually, it's going to become one cosmic soup. Very, very damn close to that, anyway, as the way I see it. What we're talking about is just going to be part of our natural daily activities until the next thing arises. And I don't know what the next thing is going to be, but.
Well, in closing, to tell everybody, many people, the technology is not a panacea for all of the non-behaviors that occurred in the good times that lead to entitlement and obscure responsibility. So something to keep in mind for our next episode of the Culture Ranch podcast. We ran out of time to read the excerpt. So what you could do instead is buy the book, 30 Days of Thought. Buy the book, page 43. I quit every day. I'm the entrepreneur. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Lucido, Berman. See you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.